Rinato Maheshanaha Sarvakarana-karanam Sarvakarta Vijayate Sarvatma-Khaṇḍa Namaste. So, the other day, we got a wonderful comment and a wonderful question from Lalitha. And Lalitha is asking, how do I control the vasanas? And this is a wonderful question because it's really the central question of all sadhana. What is sadhana, first of all? Sadhana means controlling the mind. The mind is part of the body. And it also is our memory from past lives. So the mental tendencies or habits, the habitual thoughts that come up all the time in the mind are related to these two factors, the body and our past lives. The needs of the body, hunger, thirst, and so on, are one kind of vasanas. And another kind of vasanas are the thought habits that we established in our previous lives. So when we come into this life, it's actually very easy to see in the Jyotish chart, the birth chart. What are the vasanas? What are the mental habits? What are the karmas that we bring with us into this life? And a good astrologer can, just by looking at the chart, pretty much delineate the character of a particular person, because he can see what are the tendencies of their minds. Now, on top of that, we have desires. And these desires can also be vasanas. They can be based on past habits, or they can be something new that we create. And the tendency or habit or desire for self-realization can be either one of these. It can be something we developed in a previous life, or it can be something that we begin now. Ideally, it should be both. So then, how do we overcome the vasanas? Well, not all vasanas are bad. Vasanas, for example, habits of truthfulness, of steadiness, kindness, and so on, good qualities, we should encourage those. We should try to strengthen them. And the bad habits like lust, anger, untruthfulness, and so on, we should try to discourage those. So again, the question comes, how? Well, that's the function of sadhana. Sadhana means a method that we perform over a significant length of time to change the vasanas, to add to or delete the mental habits that lead to our behavior. It's good or bad. So sadhana means, well, why, for example, do we repeat the mantras? Some people repeat Ram, 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 or Hare Krishna, or Jai Shiv, Namah Shivaya, and so on. So, what are these mantras? They are generating habits, habitual thoughts. I remember, I haven't had a scary dream or an uncomfortable dream in a long time, but when I used to have them many years ago, I would find myself chanting in the dream, chanting my mantra. And sure enough, the scary part would go away. So mantra, man means mind, and tra comes from trayate, which means to protect. So the mantra protects the mind from its own bad habits. We want our mind to be clean and pure, peaceful, not like an ocean that's storm-tossed and violent with huge waves, but we want a nice, clean, calm ocean with a nice, easy breeze like we have today. Beautiful day today. So this is the kind of mind we want to cultivate. So the way we do that is by worshiping God in any form, or in as many forms as we like. It's a matter of personal taste. Some people like to worship God as Allah, or the Father of Jesus. Or some like to worship God as Krishna. Some like to worship as Radha, or Shiva, or Shakti, or Ganesh, or so many different gods. I think every country or every culture has its own idea of God, and that's fine. Whatever appeals to you. Sometimes Hindu friends will say, I don't like to hear this Muslim call to prayer in the morning. And I say, well, what's the problem? If people are calling out to God somehow or other, in any way or form, well, that's fine. That should be encouraged. That should be something we admire and respect. It may be a different form or a different name or a different flavor of God than we prefer. But that's all right, Let them, or encourage them actually, to be a good Christian or a good Muslim or a good Hindu or a good Buddhist or whatever they are. So the point is, a habit can only become changed by developing another habit. For example, I used to smoke when I was young and foolish. And it was a very difficult habit to quit. So how did I quit that habit? By developing the habit of chanting mantras. Because it's done with the same part of the body. Another point is to look into the reason behind the habit. What is the desire or what is the fear behind a certain habit? A habitual thought usually comes up because of some tension in the mind, either a desire or a fear. So what is that thought? What is that desire? What is that fear? You have to look into it and recognize it, acknowledge it, because repressing it will simply make the habit stronger. And then one must cultivate another habit to replace it. So I cultivated the habit of chanting. Every time I wanted a cigarette, I'd get out my beads and just chant like mad. And also look into it and found out that the reason I was smoking was to suppress my anger at being frustrated in so many desires. So in that way, I could take responsibility for that feeling, and I could begin to work towards satisfying those desires, now that I made them conscious and deliberate, took responsibility, took ownership of them. Not that they were bad, not that any desire is bad, necessarily, but if we don't manage them properly, they can take over our lives. They can influence us in all kinds of nasty ways. So, the best approach to regulating the mind and overcoming habitual negative or uncomfortable thoughts agitation of the mind, is to develop good mental habits. We're not going to be able to get rid of the mind. The mind is part of the body. And as long as we have the body, we're stuck with the mind too. The mind is one of the 5 sheaths. The gross body is called the Annamaya kosha, the food sheath. And the mind is called the Manomaya kosha, the mental sheath. So it's one of the 5 bodies. And we're not going to simply get rid of it. But as we go higher on the scale of self-realization, by now, if you've been watching this channel, you've seen our chart of the 4 darshanams. I'm going to show it here just for a little bit. So the method that we use in sadhana will change according to the level of our darshana, and that is determined by how we look at the world. If we look at the world as something real, and of course our own bodies and so forth are included in the world, right? If we look at it as real, that's Dvaitavada, the lowest of the 4 darshanams. If we look at the world as conditionally real, but something created by God, which will go away, either at the end of its existence or by attaining self-realization, that's Dvaita Dvaita or Vishishta Dvaita Vada, the next stage. When we reach the point where we see, the world is just an appearance in consciousness, a thought in the mind, or basically an illusion, then we're on Vivartavada platform. And when we finally realize that, we're on the highest platform. So, according to our platform, we have to adopt those methods. And for Dvaitavada, it's karma yoga. For Vishishta Dvaita, it's bhakti yoga. Not the kind of rules and regs bhakti, but spontaneous bhakti. For Vivartavada, it's Raja Yoga, or Buddhist meditation. And for the highest, Ajata, there is no sadhana, because that's perfection. So, this means we have to have the requisite qualification for these different views. We can't pretend. We can't imagine that we're higher than we are and try to adopt the methods of a higher platform, because we'll fail. So we have to be honest with ourselves. It's better to be humble and adopt a lower means than one is actually qualified for. Because guess what will happen? That lower means will automatically evolve into higher ones. For example, if someone is actually very advanced, but they very humbly take up karma yoga, that karma yoga will evolve into bhakti, and that bhakti will evolve into Raja Yoga, meditation, spontaneously. I know, because this happened to me. So, the point is, don't think you're more advanced than you really are. If there's any doubt, take a lower position. There's a beautiful parable in the Bible about that, where Jesus said that one who is invited to the wedding feast, if he goes up to the head table, he can be kicked out. What are you doing sitting here at the head table? Your chair is down there by the door. Very embarrassing, isn't it? But if you come in and take a humble position, and sit, by the door where everyone's shoes are kept, then the host may say, "Oh, no, that's not your seat. Come up to the head table." And this is a great honor, of course. So better to take a humble position, do the most basic sadhana, the karma yoga, follow the rules and regulations, and then if you're actually more qualified than that, don't worry. God himself will lift you up or herself, will bless you with the higher states automatically. And in this way, over a long time of practice, you will be able to overcome all the negative vasanas. Aum Tat Sat. Aum Harihi Aum.